which is always dangerous for me. The last couple of times I was with you, and I was here last week when we talked about sin. And we talked about, what the heck is it? And we talked about David and this story of his sin with Bathsheba and this affair and this accomplice murder. And Nathan looking at him and saying, David, you are the man in this story I told. You are the one that you say deserves death. And what I want to do is gone next week, even the week after, I want to kind of wrap that up then. And if your memories are like mine, don't worry, I'll remind you what you were doing. But sometimes God does things and he says, not today, Jeremy, something else. And today is one of those days. And so I want you to turn with me to 1 Samuel 17. And I love this story. It's a story that we all know, for the most part. It's a story that has become something that is almost culturally reserved for sports analogies, and in our churches is oftentimes reserved for children's stories. It's the story of David and Goliath. And I think this applies to you guys today, to our church today, and what you have in store for you here in the future. And so you know the story, right? David has been anointed to be the next king, all right? And so remember, there's already a king, right? Saul is king of Israel. Now, how did Saul become king? Samuel goes and finds him and anoints him. God leads him there and says, this is going to be your king. This is going to be Saul, your king. You asked for a king. This is him. And so Saul is still king, and it's come time to anoint the next king, Saul's successor. Now, oftentimes we think of like a monarchy as well. It's just the king's son becomes king, right? But that's not how Israel was going to work. They had asked for a king, but God said, I'm going to do it a different way. And I'm going to anoint a king. It's not going to be this hereditary thing. And later it did become that, but it didn't start off that way. And so David is a young man. He has been anointed king, and he has gone to Saul. He's been in his service there in Israel. And David comes to this battle that's about to happen. Now, David he's the runt of the litter, okay? In fact, when Samuel comes to anoint David, and he goes to Jesse, his father, he says, bring all your sons to me. One of them is to be Israel's next king. Let me, and I will anoint him as king. And he sees all of Jesse's sons, and he says, none of these are the king. You've got to have another boy. And he's like, yeah, I got David, but you don't want anything to do with David. Samuel knows that's going to be the king. So this has already happened. The stage has already been set for David. And he comes to this battle between the Israelites and the Philistines. And there's no fighting. This is what it is. There are two hills, there's a valley, okay? The Israelites are sitting right here. The Philistines are sitting over here, and they're staring at each other. For 40 days, no fighting. And David has come to bring some bread and some food to his brothers. And he shows up and he's like, why aren't you guys fighting? These are the Philistines. These are our enemy. These are people, you're God's people. God's got your back. Don't you remember that? Remember who you are, Israel. Why aren't you going to kick their tail? God's not going to send you into battle and just leave you high and dry. And then David realizes why they're all standing there. Because this man named Goliath comes out from the Philistine lines, and he comes to the valley, and he stands there, and he taunts the Israelites. And Goliath is massive. He comes, he's probably over 7 feet tall, thick, heavy, he wears armor that is heavier than probably some of the Israelites. Well, historically, we kind of know that Israelites were very good fighters. They were very good at war. They were probably kind of small people. From archaeology and stuff, when we see like their doors in their house, they're really short. So we probably think they were probably pretty short people walking under those things. And to see this giant man come out wearing armor heavier than you are, with a spear heavier than you are, and a sword at his side, and he's saying, come and fight me, send your best. What we'll do is, let's spare some lives. My army doesn't have to fight, your army doesn't have to fight, just send your best out. Send your champion out. I'm the Philistine champion. We'll duke it out, single combat, winner take all. The loser surrenders. And this wasn't the most uncommon thing at the time. And so David kind of gets laughed at. Like, who are you to be telling us to go and fight? Do you see who's out there? Do you see Goliath? Do you see how big, how menacing, how terrifying this guy is? If anybody goes out there, they're signing their death away. David says, don't you remember who you are? You're Israel. You're God's people. And you're afraid of me. He says, well, what do you get? 1 Samuel 17, verses 24, 25, he asks, what do you get if somebody fights him? If somebody wins? And Saul has offered everything. Riches and titles and honor. Wives. You can have it all if you just went out there and fought and won. But despite all of this, despite being offered so much in the kingdom of Israel, no one has the guts to do it. Because it doesn't matter. You offered somebody billions of dollars, but you said the only way you get it is to go do something where you're certainly dying. It doesn't matter how big the price tag is, right? It doesn't matter how big the reward is. If you're going to die, you're not going to get to enjoy it. And that's what Israel's army is doing. They're saying, that'd be great. I would love all the stuff the king could give me. It would be wonderful to have it, but I couldn't enjoy it because I'm not going to win this fight. Goliath's going to kill me if I go out there and challenge him. I don't stand a chance. And so I guess imagine David. David is one of two things. He is either naive or he is supremely confident in who God is. And I think it's the latter. He says, well, you guys won't do it, I'll do it. We're God's people. And this is a challenge. He's defying God. You're doing nothing about it. I know God's got my back. I'll do it. And so he's sent before the king. He's sent before Saul. Saul says, well, if you're going to go fight Goliath, David, you're gonna need my armor. I'll let you wear the king's armor. You can take my sword, wear my helmet. You can go fight him. Don't settle for this cheap stuff that the other soldiers have. You can wear the king's. So they dress David in it. Now there's a difference in stature here, okay? We know about Saul that Saul looks like a king. You know, we talk about that it's political season now, right? And you talk about somebody that they look like a president or something. They tend to be tall and broad-shouldered and stuff like that. Saul looks like a king. He is tall, he is strong, he is broad-shouldered. When the Israelites saw him, they said, that's a guy that can be our king. He looks like one. David didn't. David was the youngest brother. What we know about him is he grew to be a very good soldier, but he was not a big, imposing guy. And so he puts on Saul's armor. Now this armor is made for the king. It's made for a big, strong, broad-shouldered guy, and David puts it on, and he's swimming in it, it seems. And he can't move around the way he'd like to move around. He's not quick on his feet when he's weighed down by this. And he says, no, I'm not used to this. I've got to do it my way. So what's he do? He goes and he gets these 5 smooth stones. And that's what he's going to use to fight this giant. But it's what he's used to. It's what he's good at. He's putting these stones in this little leather piece of strap. Have a little pouch pocket at the end. So you put that stone in there and it's slinging around really fast. He's really good at sending that stone flying and hitting his mark. Now, as a shepherd, he probably had to do this. As a shepherd, he had to protect his flock from wolves and bears and lions that would come out and try to eat them. And so a shepherd has a rod and a staff. And now, a staff they use to guide their sheep, a rod they use to fight off things. And some of them had a sling. A sling was also used by soldiers too, but it was used by shepherds. And what David had already done in life as a shepherd was this. He already fought a lion. He already fought a bear. Killed them both. Now, if you want to talk about some cool life experiences to live through, that might be helpful. All right? Now, if there is a lion ready to kill me, ready to kill you, and you take it down, all right? Now, remember, there's no firearms in David's day. All right? I know there's some of you guys here thinking like, if there's a lion, I got plenty of stuff at home to take care of that thing. David's got none of that. He's got a stick of wood. He might have had a sword. And he's got a piece of leather and some rocks. He killed a lion with that. Later, he kills a bear. And he's telling Saul, I've killed a lion, I've killed a bear, the next is the giant. See how God prepared him in life for this? So I wonder, for you and for this church, what has God brought you through that was a victory? Where you say, God, you brought me through that. I could have died. I didn't. God, I was hopeless, and you gave me hope, and you showed me who you are, and you showed me that you always have your people's back. Amen. And it's really easy for us to become short-sighted and think that that's just this victory. But what if God is using that to prepare you for something bigger, for something scarier, for something tougher and meaner looking than the first challenge you went through? And I bet, if you're to sit down and reflect on life, the stuff you've gone through in the last 5 years, 10 years, might have been a lot tougher than 20 years ago. That somehow God was prepping you for what He has in store for you. That's right. And so David, knowing God has prepared him, goes out to fight. If you look in 1 Samuel 17, I want you to look at verse 41 with me. It says, Meanwhile the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods and said, Come here, and I'll give you your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the fields. And David said to the Philistine, You come against me with sword, spear, javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty and the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcass of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those who gather here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and He will give all of you into our hands. So this is what David says. David says, I get it. You're bigger and stronger and badder than I am. And I really don't stand much of a chance against you on my own. And all these soldiers here behind me and all those soldiers there behind you, both of these armies know that if you and I are to fight and everything else is equal, you're going to kick my butt, you're going to kill me. And so, Goliath, when I beat you and when you're dead, everybody here the Philistines and the Israelites are going to know it wasn't because of me. It's because of our God. Then you are coming up against some guy named David, some shepherd boy anointed king. That's not who you're fighting, Goliath. You're fighting God. And you're about to lose. And so Goliath charges at David. And imagine the courage here. You ever see, it's tough to imagine Goliath, it's so massive. Imagine like one of our teenagers fighting like Shaq or something. It's going to be like 7 foot tall, like 300 pounds, and send him like this 80-pound teenager out to fight him. Alright? A little 12, 13-year-old guy. A little scrawny kid fighting this massive man. If they're running at each other to fight to the death, you know what you're going to do? You know what all the Israelites are doing? Is they're doing this. Because they think they know what's about to happen. So David charges at him. And as he's running, he puts a stone in his sling. And he swings it over his head. And he sends it flying. And he sinks it right into Goliath's head. And he knocks him out. And then he goes and he takes Goliath's own sword and he beheads him. And the victory is Israel's. So my question to you today, church, is who or what is your Goliath? And I have a hunch it's been this search for a pastor. I have a hunch that since November, some of you have come here and said, we're never going to find the right guy. Maybe you have. I have a hunch that there's been times, for those of you on the board and the search committee, where you have sat there and said, nothing this week. Where maybe like the Israelite army, we've looked out at a challenge that's come day in and day out, and we've said, we're not going to win. But maybe there's a little David in you too. And I've gotten to know you guys enough that I know there is. That when you look at God, and you know who God is, and you know what He's done, and you look back at your own lives, individually and as a group, as a church, and everything you've been through over the years, and everything you've been through in your life, and you say, you know what, do you remember when this happened and God brought us through? Do you remember when you got that bad news or that diagnosis, and you thought all hope was lost, and you cried out to God, and He brought you through? Do you remember when your marriage was on the edge and He said, I just don't know? And you came together and you looked at God and God brought you through. Is that maybe, perhaps? So we talked about finally, Paul writing finally, perhaps God was up to something. Perhaps God is using everything in your past. All those victories after victories, all those times where you thought all hope was lost or the challenge was too big, too strong, or too bad, and somehow He brought you through. That God has prepped you for another Goliath that you're defeating. And if that's the case, then I wonder, what's next? For David, there was a lot more after Goliath. When you read the life of David, that doesn't even top his toughest things he's done, or the toughest things he's been through. Got started with a lion and a bear and then a giant, and then he had to be king and learn how to do that. You know, it's easy when you look at this story. It's easy to think that David's the hero, right? It's easy to say David showed up, and David reminded Israel of who they were and who God is, and reminded Israel of what God can do if they just followed him, if they remembered who they were. And then David goes out and shows them who God is, and shows all the Philistines who God is. It's easy to start to think, David's the hero. David's not the hero. David's just obedient. God is the hero. There's nothing so special about David that sets him apart from me or you. Because it just boils down to obedience of saying, God, I believe you are who you say you are, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I am your child. And I know if you call me to something, you are going out there with me. You're not just going to sit back and say, see what happens. If there's one thing you ever remember when I say, it's this. 1 plus God makes all the difference. It has made all the difference for me. It will make, it can make all the difference for you. Me, on my own, is a pretty sad, poor story. And bluntly, the same for you. But you add God to the equation. You add God to your life. You start to look to God and say, God, I believe you are who you say you are, and here am I. Here's my life. Take it and do what you want with it. And this is what we find when we do that. That somehow, by some seemingly mysterious way sometimes, when we say, God, put my old self to death and rise me anew. Make me who you want me to be, who I was created to be. When we put our old self to death and forget about our old self, we come to share in the life and the victories of Christ. If David would have been content with being his old self, of being just a shepherd boy, living in the country, he could have never done the things that God called him to do. If when the lion came to take his sheep and he said, you know what, it's worth a couple to not fight that thing, because that thing will kill me. When the bear comes, you know what, it's worth half my flock, because I'm going to be dead if I fight that thing, or try to scare it off. But that's not what David did. David stood up to the challenge because he knew who God is. David could have showed up there and he said, why isn't anybody fighting these Philistines? God has got our back. And then Goliath comes out and he said, oh, you're right, you guys got a good reason not to fight the Philistines. Here's your bread. I got some sheep to take care of. You guys take care of Goliath. He didn't do that. Because David was somebody who looked to God and said, God, use me however you want to use me. So whatever it is you're facing as a church or as an individual or as a couple or as a family, think back and reflect. Talk about it out loud. I dare you, this week. Sit down with your husband, your wife, your kids. At the dinner table say, what's God brought us through? And what do you think he's got in store for us next? And I bet my life on it that there's stuff you can sit around and you can praise God for today. Amen. And I bet when you do that, when the tough times come, you can look back and you can remember, hey, remember what God already brought us through? He's going to bring us through this. Right. So let's start acknowledging it out loud to each other in our small groups, in our homes, when you're having coffee on Sunday morning, that we build each other up as a church and that we strengthen each other. Let's pray. God, thank you. You have brought us through some tough times. You have brought us through doubt and questions. You have brought us through feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. God, you have set us on solid ground, and you put a new song in our lips. God, a song of praise. And this morning, God, and today we give you praise because you are the God you say you are. You are the Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, God. That is you. You're a God that is not far off. You are a God that is right there in the thick of it, fighting Goliath with us. In your name, amen. All right, see you in a couple weeks.
In the eye of the storm, you remain in control.